Welcome to another edition of the Cozmo Ill Show. I have an honored guest today. I'm honored to have my family, all y'all my family, but I'm talking about one of my blood relatives, my brother Akil-Bey, Islam or.
Islam, peace and love.
And, we have our conversations, and I always tell him, I said, man, I really need to get you on the show because our conversations, I put my phone on speakerphone and it just sounds like a radio show. And we talk about a lot of subjects, and we decided to let you in on this one. And there's been a lot of talk since the Beyonce video coming out, and this whole show is not going to be about Beyonce because I know you're probably sick of hearing of it, so don't get turned off because I mentioned her name. But we will be dealing with subliminals in the media in general, and of course there's no way that we can't deal with that subject in the light of current events. She's everywhere. On top of that, the video and the performance possesses an array of cultural and resistance symbols that have bearing on the history of so-called Negroes, blacks, and colors in this country. And there's a lot of subtle, there's a lot of over the top imaging or images, but there's a lot of subliminals, and for those of us that study the signs and symbols, we want to kind of highlight some of those today. So welcome to the show, brother man.
Welcome people, and I'm glad to be here. Yes, on the show. This is how it goes down, like every day. Great intro, by the way. The main thing is people don't study the logos. They're told, stay away from that. That's mysticism. Well, in my opinion, it's the same thing as being taught to turn the other cheek by the main person who plans on socking you in the jaw. It's a great cover in order to control that which not only you think, but what you are allowing yourself or limiting yourself to even be able to perceive. And the main thing is there are symbols, whether overt or covert, that communicate, whether it's sacred geometry or whether it's corporate logos or whether it's things that your subconscious mind doesn't pick up that's right in front of you. While you're looking at it, you think you're being entertained. However, you're actually being conditioned, and you hear terms like predictive conditioning or mind control or all of these different subcategories that basically come around to the same thing, and the overall agenda is to give you what you think is your own opinion and have you respond in a social setting as well as a political setting accordingly. Just to give you a idea of how sports, dates, times, logos, and propaganda can be, manipulated and utilized to the will of those who are in control. Whether you're going all the way back to Jesse Owens in 1936 showing up Hitler in the Third Reich, or whether you use the example of Max Schmeling at around the same time versus Joe Louis, the Brown bomber, and that propaganda, the second rematch when Joe Louis beat him down, or even if you fast forward all the way up to the women's lib movement, the women's liberation movement, where you had the second match, the battle of the sexes between Bobby Riggs and Margaret, I believe her last name was, what was her last name? I can't remember her last name, but it was May 13th, 1973, and it was a tennis match. And, the women's sports was struggling to define itself, and this guy named Riggs was a misogynistic professional tennis player, and he had already beat Margaret pretty bad that. But in the rematch, he went up against Billie Jean King, and he thought he was going to win. And when he went up against Margaret, he came in the amphitheater on a rickshaw, which is a 2-horse wagon being pulled by 4 models. She came in the amphitheater Cleopatra style, being carried by 4 slaves, and she ended up getting whooped on. Billie Jean King came back and saved the day for the women. But my point is, these events are transpiring in order to bring about a certain movement or atmosphere or mind state, and it can either devolve or evolve you, just depending on where your mind is at now. And the Bible would say, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So unless you get that knowledge, you won't be able to decipher the underlying message that's being conveyed, and you won't be able to propel yourself above it. In other words, you'll get caught up in the emotion rather than the logic. The logic is what is going to give you that, spiritual maturity in order to digest and convey the message with clarity to the next person. And that's what this is all about. It's about growth. Anything that's not growing is dying.
All right, so now let me pause right here for a second, and let's bring it back to the current right now, because I think through the course of that, we've established that there's a lot of symbolism and a lot of subliminal, some overt, some subliminal, some subtle messages that are in these movies. And when you study the signs and the symbols, they're all the same. And I tell brothers and sisters, I have a book called The Moabite Key, and you could get it at Amazon.com. And it's the key to understanding the wisdom of the ancients. And it's all based on this alphabet, Moabite alphabet. And you'll see these signs and symbols run through what they call the occult. And I always tell people that the root word in occult is cult, which is the same root word that's in culture. And it goes back to what you were saying about, how they get us to be scared of these types of things. So these signs and symbols go back to ancient Moabite civilization, go back to Kemetic civilization. You learn them once, they're just being reproduced. Like you said, even in corporate logos, names of products, it's just like how when we come up with a product, we put our little science in it, those of us that are moving in science, and they're doing the same thing. So with that established, one of the things I noticed, and some of it was pointed out to me in the media, beyond the signs and symbolisms that I posted on Facebook, one of the first things it's the 50th anniversary. And actually, it was you who pointed out to me the guy's name. Now, we know Panther, and you pointed out Cam Newton. His name was Newton. And then, of course,
his name was Cam.
Say it again. Cam. So look, so you got Cam and you have Newton, and then you also have it's the 50th Super Bowl, but it's just interesting. He's going against, like you said, the pale horse, but then it also corresponds more or less with the 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party, which is coming up. And and then of course the imagery in the video. But now, I ask brothers and sisters out there, come on now, is that can that be coincidence?
Well, whether it's coincidence, which means that the ethos is speaking, or whether it's contrived, which means that there's a human manipulation behind the scene.
I need you you're a little low now. Can you get back closer to the mic?
All right. I said whether it's contrived, which means human beings operating behind the scene to bring certain things about, or whether it's all coincidence, which means that the ethos is actually speaking. Nonetheless, it's all happening and it's all unfolding. So,
And for observers and onlookers that study that observe happenings, you know, whether it be in the environment or in the social environment, you can glean information, you can glean patterns, and you can glean forecasting and projections from this. So, and I say that because I know a lot of the listeners are like, wow, he's normally dealing with the concrete, and this is more of a, you have movable jewels and immovable jewels. Yeah, this is more of objective, this more of a movable jewel. But we can go there too, and I really haven't felt compelled to kind of go there until I saw the imagery that was put out, because it relates so much to the indigenous struggle of our people, so much to the Moorish struggle, which is one and the same. It's just Mexim over there, Mexim over here, you know. And so let's get off into that a little bit. The Super Bowl imagery. What did you draw from that?
I mean, basically, you have a
Nah, you back from the mic again.
Black Panther, basically, struggling to complete his dominance on the NFL through the imagery, and then you had the old establishment. You had Peyton Manning, right? Representing the logo of the pale horse. Mile High Stadium, everyone knows, Denver, that's where Barack Obama basically gave his inaugural or election or his speech when he was nominated to the Democratic Party. So whether he knew it or not, there was a reason why he was speaking from the platform of a pale horse. So the overall underlying message is the struggle continues, and we just got to sit back and watch this violent game and see how it all unfolds. And I find it interesting that neither quarterback had a major impact on the game. Peyton Manning basically sat back and let his defense do all the work, and kudos to his defense, whereas the brother, Cam, couldn't even really get started because he had no protection from his own offensive line. He got basically sacked physically 7 times, and then there were a couple of team sacks where he basically just had to throw the ball out of bounds, and the ball and the bowl basically is bail, you know, which is something that scares most people anyway. And we already know the symbolism of football: 12 men on each side, the white arch laying up, you know, pointing straight up into the sky like female legs.
Francis Quest Wilson.
And the thing is to get the ball into the end zone. So
now I believe the book for that, where it talks about that symbolisms, is Francis Quest Wilson, the ISIS Papers, right? For anybody that wants to get some information on the symbolisms in sports, coming from you know, rest her soul, rest in peace, rest in power. Dr. Francis Quest Wilson, check that book out, ISIS Papers.
ISIS Papers. So neither, the game was boring. It was the most boring Super Bowl I ever saw. And I watched it rooting for Cam because he was an underdog. I'm always going to go with whoever the media is hating on, because I feel like they're hating on him out of fear, and there's an agenda behind it, even though I'm a fan of Peyton Manning too. I mean, he's a bad dude, kind of like a Kobe Bryant, been around forever, been doing his thing, and he's battle tested. So the players don't even matter. What matters is the symbolism. And I find it interesting that the game was basically a wash. Denver got the W, but everyone is still talking about the halftime performance. And the reason that they are is because either they are uncomfortable with the fact that this black woman, who basically has influenced an entire generation and who has remained on top, and took the torch out of Madonna's hands, even though they tried to give it to Britney Spears, they tried to give it to Christina Aguilera, they tried, but, you know, it's just like boxing. You know, if it ain't no black heavyweight, now Mayweather is the man. Why? Because America love, a big old 800-pound gorilla to root against. Whether he's black doesn't matter, as long as he represents the antithesis to what they're comfortable with. So everyone's talking about it simply because of the message that she conveyed. Some people say, hey, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, it is. The right word is worth 1,000 pictures. But guess what? Ain't too many of our leaders saying the right words. So for so-called black folks, we have to rely on that which is seen but not spoken. And only a few people know how to do it right. Now, I'm not saying Beyonce is a leader. I'm not saying Jay-Z is a leader. What I'm saying is they represent and have represented, Beyonce has represented the epitome of stardom and fame. And whether when she was doing videos, I'm a survivor, and everyone was dressed in military uniforms, and she was scantily clad and traipsing across the stage during, I believe it was during her Destiny Child days, and we were in in Afghanistan at the time. Nobody complained because she did represent the propaganda of the day, which means that I'm going to go in here, I'm going to kick a little butt, and then I'm going to survive, because that's what Western culture does. She did another song, I Need a Soldier. That was propaganda. So
and let me stop you there, because I want that to resonate with the listeners. If they've made it this far, I want that to resonate with them, that, you know, this is not just something that's whipped up in a closet. You know, Beyonce, it's just like I put up a post, and, you know, it got a lot of attention, and of course, you know, the haters want to come, Beyonce ain't nothing. It's not about Beyonce. Beyonce is a brand. Beyonce is a corporate name, a corporate title. That's an industry when it comes to her. So the question is, you know, why is this message out here right now? You know, and I think there's an uncomfortableness with people, because whenever, you know, something like her putting a fez in her video, you know, outright Moorish fez, not just a fez, a Moor in a fez, and her dressing in the Washita fashion. By, you know, when she does that, you have people that have this fear of, well, it's a type of co-opting the movement, and it's commercializing and things. And the one thing that I tell people is, like, you know, some people have done it where they put on fezzes and things, but she didn't have it on. She had it displayed. So therefore, there's no contradiction in her character. But and the media, this is the main thing. The media is focusing on the Panther aspect of it, you know, but, you know, they're not focusing on that. You don't see that in that fez. So again, you have this so-called whitewash, this media wash, where they're trying to keep the fez out, and all it does is just create more mystique, because I got inboxes all day long of people wanting to know more now. So, and I say, yeah, she may not be a grand chic or something like that, but hey, you don't know how the universe, or how the creator is going to drive in those people, and they're drove in by it. So, you know, like you said, some people have to represent on different levels. Whatever it is, it's a sign for something for us to recognize, and then it's on us how we deal with the situation. I need you closer to the mic.
You are exactly right, and then you have to take into consideration, I mentioned the dates of the other Super Bowl. This one was February 3rd, 2016. So you got 2 plus 16, which is 18, plus 7 plus 2, which is 27 altogether, which is still 9. So you're giving birth to another consciousness, and whether it's going to work for you or against you, now you have to take into consideration that not only are you dealing with media propaganda and logos and subliminal messages, but now you're talking about the power of numbers and constellations constellations and dates, and you know. So we're dealing with wizards, whether you want to admit it or not. Now, they haven't mastered their craft. They just know a heck of a lot more than we do in means of population control and driving agendas. But it always backfires, or it works perfectly. You can either devolve someone with this type of knowledge or evolve someone with this type of knowledge. However, based on a person's understanding at that particular moment, the choice is theirs, because only through your knowledge, you know, will you really get discernment, which is right up there with revelation, to be able to look at what's happening right now and judge what's to come based on history. And history has shown us, whether we acknowledge it or not, that Shaitan, God of this world, basically, always has to tell you what he's going to do before he does it, at least once. And that's what it does. It's called predictive programming. That's the phrase I was looking for. So, yeah, and then the sister also evoked her Creole status, which so a lot of so-called black folks have a problem with. Oh, she's Creole, that means she's better than us. No, that means that she's identifying with the subcategory of the human race she and her people were jammed into.
Well, you know, and that's an interesting point, because a lot of people ask me about that particular phrase, and I tell them, you know, go see the movie or get the movie, download it. I'm sure you can get it online. I had it, and it's called Goodbye Uncle Tom, and it shows you, you know, you say, well, how was it so many slaves, only so many came over on the ships, and we know that a lot of that is bull. But after slavery was outlawed on the high seas, they started to breed the slaves, and slaves were bred, and from state to state, from plantation to plantation, and sometimes from state to state, they had their own brand of slaves. And this is what people have to realize. They had their own brand of slaves. Now, when
the Fleur de Luce
exactly.
in New Orleans is a slave brand.
Exactly. And so when you're talking about Creole, you're talking about the French slave brand. And then what was the other side? She said her mother's Creole. She said her father was what?
You know, to tell you the truth, I seen the video, and I watched the video with no words.
All right. Well, she said the other side. I can't remember his name right now. And then she said that makes a Texas Bammer. And so what people have to understand is that these are brands, you know. So that's kind of highlighting the mixing and the breeding population. Like, yeah, this is what I am, you know, now. This is what I was made into. And then kind of showing how she's going to represent. So it's really, you know, it's really important, and I'm glad you mentioned that, along with the symbolisms like the Moabite and Kemetic symbolisms that carry forward into modern day symbolisms, and along with the numbers, which are inextricably connected with the letters themselves. But then there's another dynamic, which is the history. And the history is another dynamic, and I was just given this by my son Ali here. It says, mixed with Creole and Negro makes a Texas Bammer. So, you know, they're talking about things, but if you're not in the know, then you won't even be putting this together like that.
You know, the television does it all the time. The movies do it all the time. It's like the first Super Bowl that really blew my mind was the halftime show of Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. And, you know, to me, I looked at it as they said it was a mistake and he shouldn't have done that. Well, that was assault. So you had... Well,
fill the people in on what happened for, you know, for those people that don't remember.
What happened was you had the Rams playing the Patriots, right? I believe that was the game. 2002. So everyone knows what a ram is. A ram is Capricorn. A ram is, or you might even say Baphomet, you know, versus the Patriots. So you look at the year 2002. 2002. What happened in 2002 isn't necessarily the topic, but what happened in 2001 was, everyone knows, the towers came tumbling down, which was a ritual in itself, but I won't even get off into all of that. So fast forward to the Super Bowl. I believe the date was February 3rd, 2002. So you have, delete the zeros, you got 23, 22, or you got 2 plus 3 plus 4, which equals 9. So this is synonymous of a birth, maybe of just an ideology. So, because everyone knows that,
9 represents born.
Exactly. So we're witnessing a manifestation. And then if you look at what was going on at the time, Justin Timberlake, like his music, bluegrass, funk, I get it. Okay, you want to cross over, that's cool. Janet Jackson, icon, famous family, trying to stay at the top. So you create controversy. But what was the controversy and what was the message that it entailed? Look at what was going on at the time. You had Monsters Ball, right? You had Training Day. You had The Longest Good Night. All of these movies, like at the time, were sending a certain message.
And what was that underlying theme that was running through those movies?
Okay, let's look at Monsters
In
Ball.
short, because I don't want to delay you from the other point, but it's short, short synopsis.
No, just re-guide me back to the promised land. I mean, this is things I thought about. But basically, Justin Timberlake exposed Janet Jackson on stage in front of the entire world. And then you had all of these movies, like Monsters Ball was notorious. Puff Daddy was in it. He was executed by, I believe it was Billy Bob Thornton. Holly Berry was his wife or his girlfriend. She turned around and ended up having an affair with the same guy who murked her husband. Pulled the switch, right? So now they had a sex scene in it that was, sort of porn. I mean, I watched it and I was like, wow, I lost respect for everyone who was in the movie. Not that I have a problem with sex or even aggressive sex. However, that to me was over the top. So fast forward to what permeated through everyone's psychological, mind state. They were put in a position to where not only is this going to be accepted, but the agenda became basically it's open season for white men to do whatever they need to do or want to do in order to have their way. Now, that goes all the way back to the slave plantation. Otherwise, most of us, or so many of us, wouldn't be light as we are to this day. We already know about bad wives. However, it was a proclamation to do what thou wilt.
Yeah.
Whereas up to that point, overt race relations was still kind of stagnant and swept under the table.
So let me stop.
Halle Berry got her idol. She got her Oscar. And fast forward to now, you have Olivia Pope. You have all of these movies with the theme of removing the white man. If you look at Scandal was scandalous in the sense that her own dad plays the devil. He's obstinate to her Prince Charming, which is the president, and she is actually the underlying queen, the power behind the throne, who put her master lover in his position in the first place. So the message correlates as long as, insofar as this is open season, this is what we're going to do. You look at Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction was another one where Samuel Jackson tore that movie up. Everybody was at the top of their game in that movie. Everyone. But Samuel Jackson stuck out. So his next movie was, they had built him up so great. He had was a giant on the screen, his next movie had to be The Long Kiss Goodnight, where he was a subservient second-rate PI to the ultimate killing machine spy, a white woman. Whereas Denzel Washington, so-called black man, played Malcolm X, played in not School Days, but played in, Mo Better Blues as a jazz musician. Did all of these prolific roles. He never got an Oscar until he got shot in the behind and killed at the end. Well, what was his next role after that? It was, what was the name of that movie? Man on Fire. But we all know what fire symbolizes. You can be reborn through water, or you can be reborn through fire. Water is the church. Fire is knowledge. You want to remove God. You want to get to God's status on your own. So, Man on Fire. What was his role? He was the higher help, subservient to a little white girl.
Islam.
That he had
so-called
to
white.
A little so-called white girl that he had to protect. When I say black and white, I'm speaking in general terms, but my ideology and the people who are actually in the know, so-called, because there is no such thing as black and white as a race. There are labels, shadow brands. One derived to put you on the top, the other derived to keep you on the bottom. One on the bottom.
So
one
now,
means purity, the other one basically means death.
All right, so now let me pause right here for a second.
Don't spend your whole life dreaming, chasing after shining thing. Need that L-T-P-F-J. Love to peace, freedom, and justice. Need that L-T-P-F-J. Love to peace, freedom, and justice.
Pray for forgiveness, seeing fortune, started sinning. Hope for wishing, no opposition. Opportunity I'm missing. Night train to greatness, I missed it. Rebel business, told on witchcraft, never kidding. Soft as kittens, eye for an eye. Even tennis, slipping in your tennis. Let me show you how society crooked. Beat his ass cause he black and throw his ass in central booking. Move in the spirit of Tookie. A fool is what they took me, but it's by design, nigga. Use your mind, nigga. Don't act surprised. Open up your eyes. See, you been fighting the devil in disguise. Sniff that line and be high. I've been patient, seeing visions of Satan. He told me he was waiting for me to put the balance in order as we desecrate the creation. Finally seeing like crustaceans. When I'm done, it'll be shook ones like Haitian. Who's a horseman hits the pavement like the kid will never see whether they went soulless body vacant there. Any demon face, I'm doing the most in the hood. But we faces, face it, the shit is sick, contagious. You hate it, paper didn't wait. The shit I'm dropping heavy, you should weigh it. You the tight mazes, causing mayhem, original Mason. You the butler and maidens, bow in the presence of amazing greatness.
Don't spend your whole life dreaming, chasing after shining thing. Need that L-T-P-F-J. Love to peace, freedom, and justice. Need that L-T-P-F-J. Love to peace, freedom, and justice.
And so we're back with Brother Akil-Bey, a.k.a. Brother Broham. So we go ahead and pick it up where we left off at. You had something, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were saying?
Yo, yeah, when you get into her bringing up her Creole in a Negro, we're talking about modern day genetic manipulation. You go back to the movie Goodbye Uncle Tom, I believe, in some segments, and then when they were creating, like they were taking the virtuous young slave.
Yeah, they were breeding them, straight breeding.
Her in the dungeon with the buck, or when they were discussing the slaves that were being made from the offspring of the master, what did they call them? They called them suckers. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they were diluting them. They weren't as potent as the original product. And they were making a softer, more pleasant to their eye off-breed, but when it came time to talk about endurance and what they could actually live through, they called them suckers, because a sucker is something that takes away from the essence and its original power.
Yeah.
So
it's still sucking and taking away from the milk when it should be able to survive on its own. And I like to point out to the brothers and sisters out there that yes, that's where the word sucker comes from. That we use.
That's where the word sucker comes from. So when you calling someone a sucker, just like when you calling them a jive turkey, you're saying something that you really, if they knew what you were calling them, you probably catch one in the mouth.
Exactly. And I have a video about turkey and where it goes back to on YouTube, Cozmo Ill channel. So, you know, you can check that out. But we're going to wind it up. So last words on this recent subliminal display. I mean, you know, it's I can't downplay the significance of her putting the fez in there, because, you know, a lot of times artists use the movement and to associate themselves with the movement to gain notoriety. And what I noticed in this case is, you know, she's on top of the world. She doesn't need any notoriety, or that brand doesn't need any notoriety. They being connected with the Panther Party or the Moorish movement could actually even damage her career. So then we have to ask ourselves, what are the motives? And the only thing that I can arrive at is to send a social message. And when we look at one of the things we didn't discuss was the cinematography. I'm not a master at cinematography, but I know about panning, and I do know that when you pan out on the last thing that you pan out on in cinematography really holds a special significance. And from what I saw, it was that more with the fez.
Yeah, I mean, the more with the fez, the position he was standing in, the fact that she had the braids like the ancient, you know, like the Native American sister. But before I say that, let me just clarify one thing. When I said in their eyes they were creating something that wasn't as potent, but based on history, if you look at Huey Newton, if you look at Beyonce, if you look at Joe Louis, just because you light skin don't mean that you're not just as potent as somebody blue-black standing right next to you.
That's
so-called black is so-called black. When you are Moorish through the descendants nature of your forefathers.
Exactly.
And that supersedes a weaker genetic strand. So I'm not hating on my light-skinned brothers and sisters, because I know who you are.
Well, that's, I mean, that's,
embrace you.
Yeah, that's another,
but that's for
that's another
the people
trick
out there who might want to try to sow the seeds of discord based on a weak interpretation of what we're discussing.
Exactly. I mean, you know, we come from 16 different shades. You know, we have 16 different shades. I mean, there's probably more than that, but I'm just keeping it according to the science. And with that, we're going to leave you how we always leave you, brothers and sisters. Peace, love, all the above.
All the above.